Pramila Jayapal, Representative Pramila Jayapal, appeared on Meet the Press with Christian Wilker, and it turns out that she had a lot to say. But most importantly, I think what she did perfectly was to enumerate the reign of terror inflicted on the Gaza Strip by Netanyahu's clan. I think it's important because when one places these items side by side, the damage in Gaza versus the damage in Israel, the destruction of the infrastructure in Gaza versus the destruction of the infrastructure in Israel, the number of deaths of children in Gaza versus the number of deaths of children in Israel, the number of deaths of people altogether and maiming compared to that in Israel as well. If you take a look at all of these all over, you have to ask yourself, who is in fact the oppressor? Who is in fact the one inflicting the most inhumanity upon civilian non-combatants?
Progressive Caucus. Congresswoman Jayapal, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It's great to be with you.
It is great to have you on a very busy Sunday. So let's begin with Israel. You have called for a ceasefire in Gaza. Do you believe there's a non-military solution to the crisis that would neutralize the terror threat from Hamas and also bring home the hostages?
Well, Kristen, I called for a ceasefire or at minimum a cessation of hostilities about 12 days ago. And in that time, since the beginning of this horrific war, what we have seen is now, in addition to the 1,400 Israelis who were killed, in addition to the hostages that have been taken, hundreds of hostages that have been taken by Hamas, what we are now seeing is 8,000 Palestinians who have been killed by Israeli airstrikes, 3,000 of whom are children. We have watched 120 premature babies who are likely to die without the fuel to run their incubators. And we see 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza who are going to either have to deliver their babies or die, but about 150 babies being delivered every day without food, water, or fuel. This is not a situation that is going to help either advance our long-term strategic goals of taking out Hamas, of ensuring security and peace for both Israelis and Palestinians, or frankly, our ability to hold our moral authority on the world stage by ensuring that Israel follows the international humanitarian laws, or the laws of war, as President Biden has called for. Nobody has any love for Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization that has deprived the Palestinian people absolutely of many, many things in the time of their rule. And let's not forget that the last election where Hamas was elected was 16 years ago. Half of Palestinians are children. They were not part of that. And Hamas is not Palestinians, and Palestinians are not Hamas. We have to be very clear about that. But humanitarian agencies have been sending aid through approved partners. And before October 7th, it was about 500 trucks per day. Now, Kristen, since the beginning of this war, we have seen less than 100 trucks delivered. Israel has stopped the fuel from coming in and being delivered by trusted partners. And Kristen, I just think we have to recognize that this is a double standard. The United States rightly called out Russia for its siege of Ukraine, rightly called out the attacks on the power infrastructure, the refusal to provide food and water and fuel to the Ukrainians. And we have to recognize that our credibility and our authority on the moral stage is greatly diminished if we do not also call out this siege that Israel is launching on Gaza as violations of international law. We are losing credibility, and frankly, we're being isolated in the rest of the world. We need immediate, sustained humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza. We need the bombings, and you can call it a humanitarian truce, as 140 countries said in the resolution that was passed at the United Nations. The United States was one of only 14 countries to oppose that resolution. Call it a humanitarian truce. Use that time to make sure we get the hostages out, both American hostages and Israeli hostages. Let's not forget, Kristen, that we also have 500 U.S. citizens plus their families who were told to go to southern Gaza because they were not safe in northern Gaza. That was the part that was going to be bombed. They are now at the Rafah crossing, and all these days later, 3 weeks later, they are still there. The United States has a responsibility to de-escalate the situation. We see the escalation on the northern border with Hezbollah, and I think this is the moment for us to de-escalate, to call for a cessation of hostilities, and to allow humanitarian aid through and the negotiators to work to get the hostages released.
I think it is clear. Too many are asking us to not believe what our eyes are saying or telling us. Too many are out there telling us your eyes are deceiving you, or causation is the reason why, or the causation of the reason why so many folks in Gaza are dying is because of some incident, very terroristic incident that killed 1,400 Palestinians, is the cause of the 8,000 and growing deaths in Gaza. And one has to ask, why don't we believe our eyes? Why don't we believe our eyes not only for the occurrence of today, yesterday, and the last 3 weeks after Hamas brutally, terroristically killed and kidnapped Israelis, but let's look pre that on what was occurring beforehand. Let's look at all the issues, from the taking of properties to settlers going into areas that they were through agreement shouldn't be, to simply destroying the homes of people who have been on the land for centuries, or simply removing or taking command of their properties under military rule. Folks, we have to start believing what we're seeing. We have to start believing that revenge sometimes is used for ulterior motives. And I think that is what we'll see is occurring right now.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.